So it's going to be a very intriguing option for bowl sites. What's not intriguing is what's going to be happening in the portal, what's already happening on the recruiting trail for Oklahoma amidst this offensive coordinator turnover. We're also going to discuss the offensive coordinator search a little bit later in the show, coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. The Oklahoma Sooners have a little bit of a regression happening with the 2025 recruiting class. Cortez Mills over the weekend was projected by Steve Wiltfong and another On3 analyst that I'm blanking on his name at this moment to flip to Nebraska. And Marcus Harris, the 4-star wide receiver out of Mater Dei High School in California, has decommitted from the Oklahoma Sooners. Jay, what do you think this means right now for OU?
To be honest, what I see out of this is all of this happened kind of the Mills piece I kind of expected. He visited Nebraska during the season. Nebraska just lost a receiver, Malachi Coleman, one that we were going after. And their wide receivers weren't all that great this season for Dylan Raiola. So they need to start stacking up some guys. So they're probably spending. So I kind of expected Mills. Well, Marcus Harris, I had heard him and Mills, they got close. And once that information came out about a flip, there was probably a possibility that he's like, if my boy's not going to be there, I may need to look around. Plus, that happened at a very interesting time last night because that was right around the time players started, you saw the Jaquez Petaway information going into the portal, which we'll talk about in a second. But whenever that happened, you saw Marcus Hill right there next to it. Them happening around the same time makes me feel like somebody's had conversations with these players. Like the coaching staff may be discussing, hey, we need to go with a smaller class. We've talked about this before, and I've even dropped a video over my channel over on Unfair Sports that got to keep in mind that the roster limit is now 105. Most of these schools are sitting with 125 to 140 kids. If you've got that many kids on your roster, you're going to start cutting people. And when you start cutting people, who's going to be the ones, right? Are you going to be able to bring in 25 new players if you're trying to get yourself under 105? If you've got up to 140 kids, that's 35 kids you got to let go. And you got to basically tell them you're being either processed out or you can no longer be a walk-on because the limit is 105. 85 can be scholarship by the SEC's rule, and then the other 20 can be walk-on, gray shirts, or whatever. John, this is going to be very nuclear over the next 48 hours. That's where the starting point is. But up until Monday of next week, next 7 days is going to be massive. And we're going to cover as much of it we possibly can.
Yeah, it's going to create a ripple effect that extends all the way down to Division II, Division III. Yeah. I'm in Tahlequah, and Northeastern State University is here. Coach Cheverini, who played at Colorado, played in the NFL, he's putting out feelers, and he's out there saying, hey, D1 kids, if you're going into the portal and looking for a home, he's looking for players. And I think that's what's going to happen is you're going to see this trickle down of guys at Power 4 programs having to go to G5 and G5 having to go to, D2 or the FCS. And it's just going to create this ripple effect throughout college football because of the roster changes. And I think that's some of it. I think that's some of what's happening with Oklahoma. I think that's probably what's happening a little bit with Jaquez Petaway. But I think the other piece to that, which we'll talk about in the third segment, is the offensive coordinator, turnover as well. We don't know who the offensive coordinator is, but it sounds like the Sooners have a really good idea who the offensive coordinator is going to be, and who knows what that turnover is going to be and what it might mean for position coaches and things like that. And like you said, there might be conversations that are already happening out there that are leading to some of these decisions that are being made. Again, speculating, but that is a lot of what this could all mean. And you mentioned it. Oklahoma right now is sitting at 18 commits in the class. Yeah. And that's also, I think, including Cortez Mills, once he decommits and flips to Nebraska. So you've got those 18 guys, plus you're having to get down to 105, plus you have a lot of dudes that are coming back that you did not anticipate coming back. Your injured wide receiver room in Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Jalil Farouk, Angelo Anthony, Deion Burks. All those guys could potentially be back for Oklahoma. We'll see if all of them are back, but all of that's going to factor into how Oklahoma manages the rest of the 2025 recruiting cycle and how they manage the transfer portal as well.
I'm wondering, should we rely on those players though? Like, it's nothing against them, but we ain't seen them.
I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's one of those, you can rely on some, but you've also got to start asking the question of who can we say is going to play? Because like I don't see Deion Burks coming back at this point, and I don't think he transfers out. I think he has to go pro. With the situation with his family and the house burning down. It sounds like he's probably going to have to take his bets to the NFL, see if he can make a few $100,000 to try to get them settled. And then, of course, if he gets healthy, he can continue to play, but they'd be settled. But I don't know what the next move is going to be for him. Nick, if he does come back, that would be awesome. It sounds like he's, getting healthier, and he should, but there's no guarantee in that situation either. So yeah, I am
Jaden Gibson will be at a year in fall camp from his injury. And we've seen what it's been like for Angelo Anthony. A year would have been in October, and he still hasn't been able to get back on the field except for that week 1 game where he played 8 snaps.
Yep.
And so even though all those injured guys could be back, you've got to have somebody that you can count on week 1 and say that dude is going to play for us and we're going to be able to throw the ball and be feeling really good about it.
Yeah. And that's what you want. You want to be able to say you want to feel good about that situation. And I don't know. John, I've been thinking about this for a bit. How comfortable am I about relying on these wide receivers? And it's not, like I said, nothing against them. It's you haven't played. Now you're in the zone of no different than I've said about other players with other teams. If I've seen that you've been gone for a bit, I don't believe in you until you can show me that you can do it for a full year again. And I don't even have a problem if Nick Anderson or Jaden Gibson is down for a game or two. That happens. I mean, the goal is next man up. So I'm hoping that Zion Kearney is getting himself developed and ready. I'm hoping that Ivan Carrion is ready to go and play as well. But you got to mix in big dudes with the smaller wide receivers you have. Like Jacob Jordan's are great because they're pretty consistent at the slot and getting open. Same thing with Zion Ragin. But you also need to have some big receivers
that aren't going to
get pushed around. You got to have size. Like just with the LSU game, perfect example here, John. Why are we running a screen pass to a Jacob Jordan with Zion Ragin as your lead blocker? Dude's 50 pounds. That makes no sense, especially against a team the size that LSU is. You want to use him as a decoy to get them out of the way because he's fast. You don't want him to be that dude that has to be the lead blocker. That's what Carrion's for. That's what J.J. Hester's for. You got dudes, Zion Kearney. You got big enough guys. Let them go do that. Wears me out, but I digress. John, I'm just wondering, can we rely on them? I'm praying we can. I'm still going to be hyping them up. I just need y'all to don't make me look bad when I'm gassing you.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see them go get somebody that had a productive year in 2024 to help add some depth to the wide receiver room for 2025. Somebody that, even if they had just like 500, 600 yards on, 4 or 5 touchdowns this season, then you can build on that for 2025. Just somebody that's got some experience, some production that you can throw in there to compete with your wide receiver group. Because listen, I think you're right, man. All those injured guys coming back, you got to prove you can be healthy and be on the field through spring ball, through fall camp, and then hopefully be on the field for a full 12 plus game season, maybe. So there's a lot of question marks at wide receiver, which is crazy to think about because this time a year ago, we were feeling great about the future at wide receiver. And now it's just all up in the air. Jaquays Petaway is expected to enter the transfer portal. That's being reported by, who was it? On 3 Sports, Pete, or according to Pete Thamel from ESPN. So that's going to be one.
Well. Yeah,
that's going to be one to watch. I think it's weird that he fell out of favor with Oklahoma. Had a really nice performance against Tennessee and then never really got back on the field. So it's going to be one of those mysteries that we'll never know the answer to, but it just never came to be for him at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I loved everything about Jaquez Petaway and his option. I mean, he's a top 100 recruit at number 87 on the consensus composite with on 3.
Huge win.
I think 247 had him over 100. He was a top 100 player as well. So he was a big win and a big pickup for this team. And unfortunately, it just never materialized. So we'll see.
Yep. What's the latest on the Oklahoma Sooners offensive coordinator search? We'll discuss coming up next year on Locked On Sooners.